Hey gang, welcome back to another drawing demo for Graves County Middle School art class. This one involves creating a building in a cityscape where the building is turned to where the corner of the building is closest to you instead of one of the two faces of the building, or the side or the front, or however you want to say it. So what I'm going to walk you through today basically is the basic shapes involved in drawing this one. Later on in another demo we'll probably demonstrate how you can add these buildings using shadow drawings and creating some real depth in the cityscape. Here's a potential idea for adding color. The use of a sidewalk, the shape of the door, the window is what we're really going to focus on today. And then you can see many of these buildings in the background, just how cool that looks. And you got the grass, and then a little blue added to the road, etc. Pretty cool. This one is student created. They used a single vanishing point where the front of the building is what's facing you, and then the side vanishes. So what we're doing here is a building instead where both sides are vanishing, to the right, to the left, where the corner is facing you and closest to you. So let's get started. The idea is with a horizon. Basically, I'm not going to draw a horizon all the way across. I could, but I would just end up erasing it. So what I want to do is leave room for my buildings. So instead what I'm going to do is get a horizon started over here, and I'm going to skip some space and draw the rest of the horizon over here so that you have beginning fades off like so. And I'm going to put a vanishing point on the right and on the left, and I'm going to do it where you can see it, so about right there. Something like that. Now, initially, what you would have is something like this that's reminiscent of a kite, and you start with a vertical line crossing your horizon. I'm going to put that horizon, I'm going to put the vertical line in place without the horizon being there. And all I have to do is be sure that my ruler is parallel with the edge of my paper to be sure that it's properly vertical. So, there's the corner of my building. Now, I'm going to mentally mark the bottom and the top, and I'm going to go ahead and align my ruler to both the bottom and point, we'll call this one point A, and this one point B. So I'm going to align it to point A and draw a line going toward point A, just like that. And then do the same thing from the top toward point A. And notice I'm not going all the way to it because I don't need to. My building doesn't go all the way back. Now I'm going to anchor my pencil on the point and then use my pencil to help me line it up. And then I'm going to draw from that point toward point B. I'm going to do the same thing here with the top. Like so. So what I have is something that you could already imagine diminishing. All I have to do now is take this same vertical line and move it over to about wherever it meets the horizon if I want to. Be sure it's lined up with this side, parallel, vertical, and now I've got the end of my building. Same thing on this side. I'm going to make this one a little longer. In other words, a little longer that way, which means this line back here is probably going to be a little shorter actually. And there's my building. Now with this, I'm going to go ahead and do my sidewalk. Now that I've got my building in place, how do you do a sidewalk? Well, you anchor on the vanishing point, put the sidewalk against the building, draw all the way through and past, about like that. Now I'm going to draw from point B, and I'm going to do the same thing where these corners and these lines cross each other like that. Now I can decide on a measurement. How wide do I want this to be? How wide do I want my sidewalk? Do I want it to come out? And do I want the measurement to be the same? Well, since these are both about the same distance, I'm going to make them the same width. And I'm going to go with 1.5 inches and put a little mark for myself. And then here, the same way, 1.5 inches. 1/2, then 1 whole, and right there. So now I'm going to come down from there, line it up from the vanishing point to the mark I just left for myself, and I'm going to make that line come all the way through because I want these two lines to cross each other. Point B, turn my ruler against it, against my pencil on point B, and then draw my line, and there I've got the corner block on my sidewalk. Pretty sweet. Now at this point, I'm not finished with the sidewalk. There's a very important feature called the shoulder that I want to draw in. It's subtle, but it makes a huge difference in having the look of depth. And here, I'm just going to eyeball the distance away from, and I'm going to say this one needs to be closer because the angle is a little more severe. I'm going to draw where they meet, and then I'm going to draw from corner down like so, and there's my first corner. Now where this line comes across, I'm going to make a vertical line here and a vertical line there. So that's my first block. Now if I measure this distance, it's almost 2 inches from there to there. It's 1 3/4 inches. So the distance for my next block is not going to be that big. Instead, it's going to be 1.5 inches. I'll put a little mark. Next one is going to be 1.25 inches, and I'll put a mark. And the next one is going to be, you might guess, 1 inch. Why am I making these smaller and smaller as they go back? Well, I think you can imagine. The closest one is the largest. The one that's farther away should be smaller. Now, to make the breaks that are going this way, I can't use point A because I would just be drawing from here to there on the same line. So what I have to do is point B over here on each of them. So consecutively, I just do them from closest and there you have the first one. Now I'll just go on, anchor and turn for each one as they come up. And one thing that's really interesting about this is that every one of these lines is a unique angle. Every time, and eventually they're going to get up here, they're going to get so close to horizontal. You see the angle turns, almost like the ruler is turning like an arm on a clock, determining the angle for me. That's the way this is done. And it would be the same over here. Okay? For the next phase of this, let's see. Just to recap, the dotted lines indicate the proper angle going toward that side. Now, if I'm doing them on this side, I can't use point B for these. I would have to use vanishing point A. That's kind of the idea. Step number 3. Finished sidewalk, you can kind of get the idea how cool that looks. Looks very deep, very real, very natural. So the next phase going on to is going to be the door and the window. And I'm going to put them on the A side of the building, which means I'm using vanishing point A. And these red lines indicate the direction of the lines and how they go. And notice the right side as well as the left of the door and the window are vertical. Okay. So I'm putting them in place. What I'm going to do is give myself a guideline for the top of the window and the door, and I want them to be the same. This is going to be a relatively small building. So there's my guideline. Then I'm going to put a mark for myself about how wide the window is going to be, and then the door next to it, I'm going to say is about like that. So I put these little dots here for my door and the window. Bottom of the window, I'm going to go ahead and put in place here, like so. So this is the top of the window, bottom of the window. And now what I'm going to do is just lay down the right and left. Here's the left, and here's the right with a vertical line. And now I have my window. Top and bottom of the door are already determined. The bottom of the door is determined by the sidewalk. So all I have to do is put in my vertical lines for this, and I'm pretty well finished with it. Okay. And the top of the door, I can make it with a heavier line, and the window the same, and then I can go in and erase the line that goes between, like so. Now, here's something that's really, really cool, and that is creating, if I can find it, the depth. I'm looking for creating depth on something like the frame of the window and the frame of the door. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So basically I want to decide, let's say with the door frame, I'm going to come in from here. I'm going to move the ruler this direction, and I'm just going to draw a line very lightly, like that. And then I'm going to draw a line from this corner to point B, toward point B, and this one toward point B, like so. Turn the ruler, anchor it on the vanishing point with my pencil, and make a line. And what this does is adds to the sense and feeling of depth in the door frame. Now I've got a new corner right there and a new corner right there that you can see. Okay? This corner, if I want to make the threshold of the door, I'm going to go this way, and I use point A to determine my angle for me. The drawing is telling me which angles to use. I'm not guessing. Now I'm going to use point A for the top one as well. I'm not guessing. The vanishing point is telling me, like so. So there you have a frame for your door. And now what I can proceed to do is the interior of the room, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I want to do the frame for my window as well. So I'm going to go about the same distance that I did here that you're looking at with the eraser. And I'm going to draw a light line for myself. And then using the vanishing point B from the inner corner of the window, I'm going to draw from there to there. And I'm going to do the same thing on the top, going from the corner of the actual window to the line that I drew. So I've got that corner and that new corner now. It almost looks like a shutter that's going inside. And then from here, I've got the new corner that I just made. I'm drawing from that away from vanishing point A, and I determined that angle. I'm going to put my pencil against it, line against it, and line it up, and do the same thing here. So there you have a pretty appropriate looking window frame. The next I'm going to show you is a really cool trick, and it's the interior of the room. That will be helpful in adding buildings to your background. I'm going to go from this corner to vanishing point A and do a little bit of a shadow drawing. Just with what I mean by that is a very, very light line. And then I'm going to use the same technique on the other side with point B. And I'm using this corner of the bottom of the building. And the reason I'm doing that is so I can come in here, and I just found the back corner of the room on the floor. Now from there, I can draw a line straight up, like that. And that shows me the corner of the interior of the room. Now to be sure that I'm getting it right, I can also align the corner there and the corner there with this one and the top corner just like I did the bottom. And what you're going to find is that I just gave myself just a tiny part of the ceiling right there where this is the top corner. So I've got this dot represents the top of the wall corner, this is the bottom of the wall and the floor. Okay. Now if you want to really freak somebody out, let's say there's a wood floor here. You could start to draw what you see of that. You know, got a couple minutes. I could begin to turn the ruler and draw. As I turn the ruler, I'm using vanishing point A for planks of wood that are going across my floor. And I'm only drawing the parts of the wood floor that you would be able to see as they come across, but it really starts to take on some cool looking depth. That's all for now. We'll come back and we'll talk about maybe siding on the building, windows on the other side, and then perhaps some buildings in the background.